Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. Just because somebody's a great coach doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they do. Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler apparently missed a flight and showed up to first OTA late, and he's been basically benched in the workout areas, not allowed on the field for the last couple of weeks. You know, I understand that Belichick has his methods, but I just don't see where the Patriots, with the struggles they're likely to have at cornerback, are really smart to put Butler in chains and, you know, make him feel bad.
Yeah, I like the move. I like the move by Belichick. Even though they said it was a weather problem, that's why he was delayed. You know, it's just like if you're at home and they have a snowstorm and they get stuck in traffic or whatever. You make up for it. You notice a snowstorm, you leave an hour earlier or 2 hours earlier. You know, he's trying to get that across to these younger players. And I don't know, with Butler should have made sure, if he had to be there on a Monday, he should have made sure he got there Sunday or Saturday to make sure. So I can see what Belichick is doing. He's trying to get everybody on the right page. You know, they won the Super Bowl. He wants to repeat it. He doesn't want these other players thinking, oh, there's an excuse here or there. I don't have to worry about it. I have a good excuse. You know, no excuse. Make sure you're there on time. That's what he's trying to get across to the players.
What a difference a day makes. Yesterday on afternoon sports radio on TV, Felger and Maserati were, well, LeBron James, he's a good player, but, you know, he's not like a great player. What's he done? Is he making the clutch shots? He's only shooting under 50% in the playoffs. He's not one of the top players in the history of the game. Today, 40 points later, clutch win, bringing the Cavaliers to a 2-1 lead with a bunch of guys named Joe. James is all of a sudden a star again.
Yeah, you know, you look at it and, you know, he has to take 30-something shots for them to win because no one else can really score on the team now. You know, Smith can hit the three-pointer at times, but there's no one else who can get off his own shot. You know, he's putting pressure on the Golden State defense, and that's what's making it easy for his teammates. So, you know, he is a great player, and, you know, we've always felt the same way. You know, I think we rate Jordan better than him, but behind Jordan is him. You know, he's better than Bird. You know, even though we're both big Larry Bird fans, he's a better player than Bird. He's a better player than Magic Johnson. He's not better than Michael Jordan.
I've never seen anybody who can take the ball to the rim like he can.
Well, Michael.
Well, I don't know. Jordan is outstanding, but LeBron is virtually unstoppable. When he gets the ball 18 feet away and wants to go, he just goes.
Yeah, but you still look at his stats. He's taking 30-something shots a game. He's below 50%. You know, and
well, but he's taking threes too. So
yeah, I mean,
his effective shooting percentage.
You know,
is a little higher.
Michael's percentage was way higher, and he hit big shots. The difference between, well, LeBron James is a lot stronger player than Jordan was, can do different things, but there are things that no one can do what Jordan did.
Yeah, the question came up the other day about who's the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. Now, this is not an easy topic because there's a lot of different things. I mean, if you were Wilt Chamberlain, you could take nothing but dunks, then you'd have the highest shooting percentage. But as far as overall shooters, who are the top shooters that really come right away to your mind? I looked up who's among the top three-point shooters of all time is Hubert Davis. I would have said, like, what?
How about Kidd?
Yeah, well, Kidd isn't as high. Nash is in the top 10.
Yeah, but Kidd is second on three-pointers.
Well, no, he took a lot.
He took a lot, but he was second behind Allen.
Right. But obviously, Allen was a great shooter.
Miller.
Peja Stojakovic has been a great shooter. Reggie Miller, terrific shooter. And, you know, obviously, being able to make them in crunch time. If you look at end-of-game closers, you have people like Jordan, Kobe. Kobe might not be as good a shooter overall, but certainly was a great closer. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, too.
Yeah, but I still rate Jordan as the greatest basketball player. Well, Bill Russell, number one.
Right.
You know, I saw Bill Russell play. He's the greatest. Jordan is behind him as number two.
Well, every game is interesting in its own way. What you saw last night is the referees made another egregious mistake. They were going to give Golden State the ball on an inadvertent whistle, and then they used a replay to overturn the call, even though it wasn't clear that replay was supposed to overturn an inadvertent whistle call because Thompson had his hand on the ball when he was standing out of bounds. So Cleveland deserved to have the ball. They got the ball and were able to get the win. But 2 minutes in NBA action is geologic time. It was 11:28, I think, when there was 1:44 left. I decided to start tracking how much time that would take. And the last minute 44 took 21 minutes to play. Incredible, as far as play stoppages, timeouts, etc.
Well, you know what? I was sleeping for 2 hours. I'll tell you, Ron, you know how I am in basketball. The last 2 games, I've gone to bed at halftime. It's terrible, and you may differ with me. It's terrible, terrible basketball I've been watching. I told you when the series started, everybody loves Golden State. They have the best record. And I said, I'm not crazy about Golden State. And you watch now, their front line isn't good.
Well,
Lee should be playing,
well,
Ron.
we talked about this, both of us, and said that we thought Cleveland had a good chance because of the physicality. In the playoffs, now every game is officiated differently, so we'll see how the next game is. And Cleveland's taking far more free throws. They're also going to the basket, so that's one reason they're taking far more free throws. But the combination of James, Mozgov, and Tristan Thompson, they're just way more physical. Andrew Bogut has been nothing out there. Draymond Green has been a big disappointment. He's a guy who's a restricted free agent. People are talking about him getting $15 million. I mean, I'm not paying him $15 million.
But Ron, what you're seeing here in the years past, when you get into the finals, I mean, you got players that can score down low. You know, they can shut down Thompson pretty good. You know, although if Thompson gets going, he's good, but you can defend him. Curry, they've been defending really well, but he's still a real good offensive player. I think that's the reason they're going to end up winning this, Golden State. I'm still picking them to win it because, I mean, Cleveland, other than James, I mean, they got role players, but, I mean, come on, let's face it, Cleveland has nothing besides James. If they ever win this championship, I mean, James is going to go, I mean, he's going to be right up there with Jordan.
It reminds me of the NCAA finals in the late 70s when Larry Bird was at Indiana State with a bunch of guys nobody ever heard of, Carl Nix, et cetera, playing against Magic Johnson and Michigan State. I think Judd Heathcote was the coach at Michigan State back then. But that's kind of how it is. LeBron has to carry the load because he just doesn't have enough talent around him, absent Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving.
I think Golden State, I mean, they have to. I mean, I have to be wrong when I look at this team. When the experts are saying they're really strong, something's going on because they have nothing up front.
Well, I was having a Twitter conversation last night with another basketball guy, and the guy said that if you look at people who've come out of the Golden State or out of the San Antonio coaching lineage, they're very good at making game-to-game adjustments and not as good at in-game adjustments. So it was this individual's opinion that Kerr just hadn't made enough adjustments. Like he said, for example, putting Lee in did make a difference, but it took him forever to do that because Lee hasn't played much in the playoffs.
Lee's smart, he's a scorer, he's not as physical as Green, but you need him in the game more. They need scoring down low. I mean, every time Curry makes a good pass in the lane and you have Green going to the basket or whatever, they're not finishing. There's no one who's really finishing consistently, and that's causing big-time problems because they're putting a lot of pressure on Curry and Thompson. But I still have to think, even though I'm not crazy about Golden State, they have to win this, even though they're down 2-1. I mean, I can't see Cleveland winning it with the team they have. I mean, they got a great player in James, but there's really nothing else.
Well, I think the series is going to go 7. I don't know, I liked Cleveland.
Well, that's what we predicted.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland, despite losing star players, they're playing so physical and such good defense. Now, the word was that Dellavedova went to the hospital after the game. He was so wiped out. So I don't know if he needed IV
Yeah, that's what he needed.
Okay.
They say he's all right, and Shumpert's all right, too. No, he's a big addition.
Right.
I mean, they had some great additions. That general manager, I mean, he made some great moves.
Shumpert's a really tough defender, and he looked like
And Mozgov, whatever his name is.
Mozgov, yeah.
Mozgov's playing strong.
Yeah, so it's not a fluke. Cleveland still has a good team, and it's been very compelling basketball. Obviously, the people in Cleveland were really into the game last night, and I'm not saying fan support's enough to do it, and whether LeBron can hold up under, I think he had 3 turnovers, and how much time he has the ball the whole game.
But it comes down to what I see in Golden State and what the experts see in Golden State are two different things. I'm thinking that the experts know more than I do, and they love Golden State. I didn't like Golden State going into this. I thought they'd win it in 7 because of the injuries Cleveland has. I'm hoping that I'm wrong because I want Golden State to win it.
Sometimes we talk about teams not having faced enough challenges during a season. The season went pretty easily for Golden State. So they didn't have so many games that they had pressure, that they had these competitive games. Not to say that I totally disagree with people who are saying Golden State's choking. I don't think it's that simple at all. I think Cleveland has a lot to do with why Golden State is struggling the way they are. But I think the other issue is LeBron has a, quote, secret motivation. Well, his secret motivation is he wants to show the world that he's the MVP of the league, not Stephen Curry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he is. I mean, let's face it. He was the MVP of the league. He should have been. He's the best player every year. He should have won it the last 6 years, whatever. How many does he have, 3 or 4?
I think he only has 2. I don't know, but
he has at least 3.
Anyway, I mean, he's a terrific player, and it's a great.
You're right, though.
It's a great series. Even people who don't follow basketball that much are watching. Part of it is, I think, because of James, but it's also the James Curry matchup. Now, if I could teach a kid how to shoot the basketball, like anybody, it wouldn't be Curry, it would be Thompson.
Yeah, he has got a great release.
Thompson's got such a compact release. Curry's fantastic. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a great shot. It's just, realistically, I think it would be very hard to teach people to shoot the way he does.
But it comes down to, Ron, if their front line of Golden State plays better than they have played, they'll win it.
I think there's always additional comments worth thinking about. The U.S. national men's soccer team won today, I believe, against Germany 2-1, the first time they've ever beaten Germany. And the coach is Jurgen Klinsmann. And he had a telling comment before the season last year about the NBA. He said, why are you paying Kobe Bryant $25 million a year? He's not going to give you $25 million worth of production. Of course, he was injured and missed a lot of the year. He's saying, we don't believe in paying people for what they've done. You have to pay them for what they're going to do. And I think that gives us a segue into looking at salaries in general. I'll give you an example. Jacoby Ellsbury got a huge contract, over $21 million a year with the Yankees. He's been on the disabled list recently. He did a good job getting on base when he was playing. Now, in 37 games, Ellsbury has 1 home run and 6 runs batted in. That's like a good game, not a good quarter of the season.
He was playing really good.
Yeah, he was playing good
base
he was playing good defense.
He was hitting 340. He
Yeah.
was getting on base. He was putting a lot of pressure on him, and Gardner were putting a lot of pressure on teams.
But if you say $21 million worth of production, not happening.
Oh, no, but it's the same thing, Ron.
Well, it's like the Red Sox paying Porcello $20 million.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to get a player that's worth $15 million probably, you got to pay him $21 million to get him on your team. It's worth it if you have the money. Now, the Yankees have the money to pay Ellsbury the $21 million. Other teams don't. So they're figuring we're a better team with him, even though he's a $15 million player. We'll give him the $21 million.
It's like the Red Sox paying Pablo Sandoval $19 million a year. He has to give up hitting right-handed because he didn't hit right-handed. And David Ortiz at $16 million a year now is hitting .114 against left-handers. So he's out of the lineup and sulking right now because he's 39 years old. Looks like the contact is diminished. He still has good, quote, exit velocity when he makes contact, but he's not making contact.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Scott Duggan, Director of Strength and Conditioning, Athletic Evolution. Thank you for tuning in for a quick look at our athletic performance programs with the help of Haley Matei.
Welcome to tonight's sports conversation. We're privileged to have two members of the Lady Raiders lacrosse team with us, Haley Matei and Lucie Coleman. Welcome, girls.
Hi.
Hey.
Well, you had a great season this year, and you made the postseason
Yeah.
for maybe the second year in a row.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us what went well.
We had a good team coming back, and it's a lot of like young players.
Everyone's committed.
Yeah.
It's a good team.
So you ended up 8-8-1 during the season?
8, 9, and 1. Oh, well,
During the
yeah.
season
yeah.
before the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the toughest team you played from your league?
We were expecting it to be Winchester, I would say.
But that was a good game.
But-
So it started out strong.
Yeah. We only lost.
By 2.
Yeah.
How about Watertown? They still strong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a strong team.
But when we played Watertown, unfortunately, we were missing 1 or 2 of our top players to injury.
What does your team have to do, and what do you individually have to do to take the program to the next level?
I think we need to be more committed to off-season work.
Yeah. Captain's practices.
Yeah. We need to take those more seriously.
Now, do you work out with Haley? I saw you on that commercial on our show, and you
Oh,
had
athletic evolution.
That's a heck of a workout. I
Yeah.
was really impressed with that. How often do you work on that? Yeah.
In the summer, I do 3 days a week, and in the winter, I do 3 days a week.
Now, what do you do, Lucie?
I do the swim team and the track team over the school year. And then the summer, I mostly take it easy, but looking to do something this summer. I don't know yet. What,
I mean, there are
but-
different elements that go into a successful program. People, obviously most important, strategy, and I don't know anything about lacrosse strategy, and then operations, how things go, what your process is. So day to day, what makes your team better?
Well, at practice, we run through a lot of like plays that are helpful during the games.
We do a lot of scrimmaging
Yeah.
during practice.
Yeah.
Okay, is scrimmaging the major focus of practice, or is it?
It's mostly stick skills. We work a lot on stick skills.
At the beginning of the season, we spent about a half an hour, like every practice, just playing wall ball and playing catch with each other. So that was helpful
Yeah.
because
It really does help.
Parts.
Like more than people think.
You know, when I notice when I watch your games, your father does a good job on the games too, and he knows the game a lot better than I do, and I try to understand a little better. But one thing I notice is that you pass the ball really well, but you don't attack as much as some of these other teams do. You really wait, and there are
Yeah.
times where is it like some of the players are hesitant about attacking. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should attack the net more.
And we need to
But-
speed up our offense too, not give them as much time to like settle up their defense when we're transitioning down into
Yeah.
the offensive zone.
Definitely.
Well, in basketball, for example, if you think about the game, half the game you're on defense.
Yeah.
And during offense, there's only one ball, so you're only going to have the ball at most 20% of the offense. So you really have to be able to play well away from the ball. What away from the ball skills offensively are really important? What cutting, what, I don't know how much you can screen people. What things do you have to do to become a bigger scoring threat away from the ball?
Well, you really have to make like good sharp cuts.
And you always want to look like you want the ball, like even if you know you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You need to look like you want it so that the defenders will think you want it, and then they'll move away.
Now, what's your team's philosophy on defense? I noticed the real good teams play great defense. They're almost doubling up on the offensive player every time they pass the ball. Sometimes your team, at times, you're not as strong defensively as these real good teams. Do you see that as an area you can really improve at?
I think defense is definitely something we could improve at because I think we have more attack players than defensive
And
players.
like as we keep like recruiting people like from JV or like incoming freshmen, we're like mostly looking for defenders, I feel like,
yeah, definitely.
because our defense isn't as strong as it could be. But
Now, what position do you play?
I play attack and sometimes midfield.
And you play the same, right? Attack?
Yeah, mostly midfield and
We're like
sometimes
opposites.
attack.
Yeah.
She plays mostly attack and sometimes midi.
Yeah.
Now, the program's evolved a lot in that younger players are coming into the program with more experience and more skills. Although that's great, it sometimes creates problems for older players who've been in the program but maybe are getting their job taken or less playing time. Is that something that you see, or in boys sports for the most part, you don't see that quite as much because
Yeah.
the difference between a freshman boy and a senior boy physically is so great. Is that a reality that you have to face up to?
I think that since the girls lacrosse is like still fairly new, like only like 10 years in Melrose, a lot of the freshmen are like just as good as the seniors, or like just a little bit worse
Yeah.
because they haven't played with the team members as long.
I think youth is a lot different than playing in high school.
Yeah, it is.
Now, who was your coach in fifth? Was it fifth, sixth grade, and then seventh and eighth?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes? Who was your coach?
I don't even remember.
We had Jim Torpy,
My dad was a coach at one point.
my dad too.
Did Jim Torpy coach you,
I don't
or were you?
think so. I'm not sure.
Because that's
I think
important.
He
I mean, that's important to get the coaching down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in lacrosse coming up. And the thing that's surprised me is that with all the talent you have up there, and you younger, well, you're going to be a senior next year, but how many goals did you score this year?
How many goals? Somewhere in the 40s.
How about you?
I don't know, maybe like 9 or 10.
You figure with all the other girls that were scoring, or Steele and those other girls, I thought you would, and then Lenora had a big year scoring
Yeah.
too. You would figure that the team would have a better record. Is it because of the defense mostly?
I think, I don't know.
I think we need to like play as a team too.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of
Definitely.
strong individual players, but if you watch the film, like a lot of the goals are like crease rolls or like from the center, like beating your player. So like I think if we work more on passing to cutters and stuff like that, like we could score more goals and then give more opportunities to other players.
In games that were close, let's say decided by a goal or two, was there anything different that you could do differently? For example, the Celtics increased, I think, 15 wins this year over last year. Brad Stevens looked at 1,500 plays down the stretch in every game that was decided by 5 points or less and said, this is how we have to do better in these situations. Now, obviously, you don't have the same type of opportunity in high school, but you can sometimes say, okay, we had free position shots or something that we didn't take advantage of, or we had face-offs that we couldn't control. What do you have to do differently in the close games?
Linfield was a really close game. It was a
Yeah.
tie, and then we lost it by 1 in overtime. And I think something that we could have done differently is game awareness, because there was a lot of like offside calls, and at one
Yeah.
point I don't even think we had enough players on the field in the
Yeah.
overtime, which definitely hurt us a lot.
Yeah, and then it also always starts at the start of the game. Like we didn't come out strong like the first half.
It happened to a
of
lot of games
the
this
beginning
season.
of the season, and even just like from the face-offs, a lot of the games we would on the face-off like not get possession, so then we'd have to work twice as hard to get possession in the defense zone and then transition back.
Who took the face-offs? I know Steele did last year a lot.
Anna Steele did, Katie,
You
Dayrod
did.
did a little, and I did sometimes.
Yeah.
What was your percentage? Did they keep?
I have no
So-
idea.
So they didn't even tell you girls, the coaches, like, we won 60% of our face-offs today. We got to get, we lost 60%, we got to get better. No one knows.
I think she's giving us a sheet with like our own individual statistics at the banquet.
But they don't tell the team.
Sometimes she does if she's trying to like make a point.
Yeah.
Like I remember during the Linfield game, like
She came back and said like exactly how many ground balls that we got
Yeah.
versus them, and
because they have 2 really strong players on their team, and like every single draw, she knew exactly where it was going, and she would get it every single time.
Yeah, there was a recent article in a blog I read called Hoop Thoughts, and it was an interview with Muffet McGraw, who's the Notre Dame basketball coach. And she says a lot of the players aren't going to be happy with their role. She said, I don't necessarily want them to be happy with your role, but she said, at the end of the season, every player has an interview, says, what do you think your role should be, and what do you have to do to get the role you want? And they give the players a list of drills that they need to work on if they really want to change their game. Is that sort of approach realistic for high school lacrosse in Melrose? Or I don't know enough about the sport to really have comments, but I can have thoughts.
yeah. Some games she would come like before the game or even after. She'd say like, you need to work on this, you need to work on this, you need to work on this. That way like we know what we need to do to like either get on the field more or like be more of a threat.
Yeah, I mean, you could say as a coach, okay, you're doing a good job, but you need to be stronger. You need to increase your speed or quickness, your athletic explosiveness, the efficiency of your cuts, whatever that's appropriate to you. So, your coaches share that type of information with you.
Yeah.
Who are you losing this year, and how are you going to look next year?
We're losing Brittany Parker, Brianna Porcello, Kayla Matucci, and Anna Steele.
Yeah.
And how's the team look next year?
I'm not sure who's coming in
Yeah.
from.
I
You
don't
must
eighth
have a lot of
grade.
talent from. You still have.
Yeah, I think we're definitely improving as like a program as a whole. And
Yeah.
Now, what did the captains do? Did you get together with them? You know, like in the off season
Yeah, we
last
just
year? Did you
had-
work in your game?
we just had a meeting the other day about
For
like
next season.
opportunities for the off season, like the Bay State games, and we play in a winter league called Homegrown. And I think if people are committed to those and it definitely helps us get better, but not enough people play,
Because a lot of people play the winter sports, like if
like
they're
hockey,
and
So
basketball.
they can't do that. And,
Yeah.
Well, you make your reputation during the season, but you earn your reputation during the off
Yeah.
season. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In a sports world of ideas, things, and people, we're going to talk about a horse. For the first time in 37 years, a horse wins the Triple Crown, no doubt because he has his own plane called Air Horse One. Hard to believe, but really true. And our horse racing expert, Lou the Sports Guru, is here to tell us about how he did it.
How did he do it? You know what he did? He led throughout. It's that simple. He's the best horse. He's the first. I think he's the first horse really worthy of winning it. You know, I think one of the things about the Triple Crown, it's like it's not one of those things for the faint of heart. It's not like a horse gets good at the right time and can really do it. I mean, just this, you know, putting everything else aside, it's a 1.25 miles for the Derby, 1.316 for the Preakness. They've never run that far before. And you're doing it 2 weeks, plus you're training all spring. They're trying to get them to peak performance. Can't have injuries. You can't have an off day. But you know what? For the first time, and I don't know how long, the 2-year-old champion won the Derby and, you know, went on further. Usually the 2-year-old champion is just some precocious horse that did okay at the end of last year. Then they all have high hopes for him. I think for once, we might be on the verge of having a super horse.
Now, if you were the owner of the horse, who has the most invested? Right, it's you. It's your life. It's all you.
I already know
Would
this.
you walk him again, or would you be having him? You do not leave the paddock ever again.
I would run him until he was 6 years old. I'll tell you that. And this is the problem with the whole sport now. It's two problems. One is they retire these horses early. Okay, as soon as they get any kind of a breeding thing, and I'm thinking, okay, the horse signed a $36 million, stud deal, and I'm like, okay, to me it's $36 million. The horses, they're owned by Arabs. Are you kidding me? They drive themselves off with $100 bills. Come on. They pick their teeth with thousands. Come on. Money's nothing to them.
The owner has an interesting history. The owner is an Egyptian Jew, which is sort of, put it this way, you don't see a lot. There are something like 40 Egyptian Jews in Egypt. I mean, really rare. And his dad was Anwar Sadat's doctor. Now, he got in a separate industry. He's a magnate in the soft drink industry, made over $250 million selling some kind of, I think, malted fruit juice, which is incredible. But anyway, so he obviously got into horse racing as a sidelight. But be that as it may, with the kind of money out there for stud fees, do you want to take a chance the horse could get hurt?
You said 30-something million? I thought it was 14 million he sold the rights.
Something like that. You might be right, 14 million. But even still.
But that's why he's letting them run again.
The thing is, though, here's the thing. I'll give you a couple of names. Secretariat, we know who it is. Affirmed, yeah, there's 2 Triple Crown winners right there. Neither one of them was much at stud. They did okay. They had a few winners, but Secretariat never really was one of those horses that you could count on. I mean, usually a stud, I don't know, I think it's like they might see 36 mares per year, might end up doing, which is a good life. I mean, but all seriousness aside, when you get to that point though where, okay, Secretariat, how many Triple Crown winners did he sire? Not a lot. And the same went for Affirmed. On the other hand, Alida, who couldn't beat Affirmed in any of the Triple Crown races, was a monster at stud. And then this other horse, Danzig, only raced 3 times. Had a $250,000 stud fee. With no, I don't even think it was a guarantee. Basically, it was hop up. If it doesn't work, too bad.
Well, I was reading that the way the industry works now is that you get paid when the foal is standing and nursing. So you must be there, dying there watching this. Stand up, stand up. So,
never mind if it can run, just stand.
Talking about ringing the register.
But the thing is, though, the sport really suffered because these horses. There were a couple of good horses that weren't super horses, but they wanted them to be. And, like in the 80s and when they were looking for the next Triple Crown winner, and they would just, as soon as anything happened whatsoever, you'd read about, hairline fracture, retired, tired, taking him out of training. All these excuses just to, okay, let's get him to stud. And the sport suffered because it lost that identity. I mean, Secretariat, one of the big things about that horse was it came on at a time. Yeah, they talk about the Watergate angle and all this other stuff going on. The world was a terrible place, Vietnam. Oh, and there hasn't been a Triple Crown winner in all these years. And so now Secretariat comes out, and it's on the cover of Time. It's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It was on every magazine. They wanted to get it on a talk show. And I think it stimulated the industry right up. And we had 2 more Triple Crown winners a few years later, and Seattle Slew. And so now we go all these years later, and I think this is what the industry needs. I think they'd be doing it a big disservice to just, okay, let's get it out of training and get it to stud because...
The coverage is spectacular, from the pre-race interviews to the broadcaster following out on a horse with a helmet cam and a mic to interview the jockey as he takes his victory walk. I think it's fantastic.
Well, the victory walk was a great little thing, I mean, and something... As we know, you're the resident Yankee fan, and I love New York horse players because I'll tell you something. You look at Churchill Downs, and you get all these women and movie stars with the big hats, and the mint juleps and all that stuff. Those people, they're nowhere to be found in Kentucky when the Derby's not going on. When you see the Belmont, though, you're looking at like real New York people, those hardworking cab drivers and bus drivers, and those are the real birds over there. And you see the Belmont, you can see them on TV, and I love that personally.
Yeah, but I think the main problem with this Triple Crown, there was no other good horse. So he really wasn't competing against anybody.
Competing against himself, you're right.
I mean, you're looking at that. I mean, he had a great last race in the Belmont, but his first 2 races were okay. The Kentucky Derby, he just won it. He got stronger as it went on, but there was no competition.
Right.
So I think that really hurt horse racing. It really did with fans like me. I'm looking for the competition.
But that will happen, though, because I'll tell you, it always does. It's like, it reminded me to switch sports, like Pete Sampras. One of the things that hurt him, he never had that big competitor. I mean, Agassi was kind of at the end. But, you look now, at tennis, for instance, on both the ladies and the men, and they all have competitors. You have to have that, and I agree totally. But that usually will happen because what happens, there's a lot of guys that they have a horse and they say, well, I don't want to push it because, like I said, you got to run them a couple of times in April, then you get to May, then you get into June. Now there's going to be a little bit of a lull. And this is where there's certain people are now going to, they're going to ramp these horses up because they want them to be ready for the July, August.
When's he running? In August, did they say? When's the Travis?
The Travis is August at Saratoga. So, I mean, I would
That's one of the races they may run.
Yeah, they're going to have if I had to guess, it's going to be 1 prep race for them, and then they'll run them at the Travis because it's a $1 million race.
Is there a Haskell too? Is that it?
Yeah, the Haskell's at Monmouth in New Jersey. So I mean,
we're talking about that.
They're gonna be smart about it because the wear and tear of the Triple Crown. It's kind of funny. Seattle Slew, actually, Hollywood Park made this big offer, and the owners had to take them up on it. Meanwhile, the trainer was saying, "Hey, look this horse. He's been 5 states." in 9 weeks, we have to give him a race, give him time off. And, they took him out. He got blown off the track out there. It was his first loss.
Didn't Secretariat lose too?
Secretariat, they
against
brought
the
him
older
out to,
horses?
well, they brought him to Arlington. It was the same thing. He wanted to give it a rest. Arlington threw up big bucks, so they threw a couple of workouts, and he ran against some donkeys, and he set the track record. But then they took him to Saratoga. He ran against older horses, and he got sick, and he ended up losing to a horse named Onion. So, I mean, it always seems to happen. So I hope they're going to do the right thing with this horse, give it some time off. You have the summer campaign, then you have the fall campaign. I mean, the Breeders' Cup's a $5 million race.
Well, no, it would be really exciting if there was a good 4 or 5-year-old horse,
And there are
top
some,
notch,
they,
and he was running against those horses. Now you have something to really look forward to.
well, that's going to be
That's
the
what
thing.
I would like to see.
Well, switching gears from the feel-good story of American Pharaoh, spelled wrong, to the total tragedy, fan safety in baseball, as Brett Lowry's shattered maple bat hit a 44-year-old woman in the head and sent her to the hospital where she has serious head injuries. Will baseball react to this, or is this just be a study and do nothing?
That's a tough call, I'll tell you, because it reminded me of the girl in hockey right away. And when I was a kid, I remembered, you guys will probably remember this, foul ball, it hit a kid in the face, and Jim Rice ran up into the stands and he grabbed the kid, carried him right in the dugout, and they got him right in the ambulance. But you always have to wonder, an inside pitch breaks in a little bit, defensive swing, and a ball just goes right over by the first base. It can happen to anybody. So what do you do, though? Because, all right, hockey's got the glass, and then they put the nets up. But can you envision, like, baseball down the first base line where suddenly they're going to have nets lining around it? Because,
Well, right. You have to figure out, first of all, you have to put in some kind of supporting pole to hang the nets from. So somebody's view is going to get obstructed, which isn't a big deal in the long run. And, we've certainly been to hockey arenas where the netting really isn't very disruptive. But it's going to be hard for baseball not to do something, in my opinion.
No, that's just can happen. I'm surprised, if you really think about it, that it hasn't happened more
How many bats
often.
end up in the stands? It happened in the Yankee game. Teixeira swung at a pitch, and it went into the stands. It was dropped right in the lap of a guy. But,
Now you say, like, how far are you're gonna extend the netting from the dugout to dugout, or something a little farther? I have no idea.
I don't know why they can't do something with the bats, though. I mean, drill right through it and put some kind of a composite netting in there so that when the bat breaks, it breaks, but it breaks like a green stick. It doesn't break
Well,
like,
they have composite bats that are, I don't know if they're ceramic or what, that are not as springy as the aluminum bats, and they obviously don't break.
This was maple, wasn't it? I don't even know.
Right, this was maple.
Yeah, and so, I mean, are there studies? Do you know? Because, I mean, I'm not even sure. I heard about it, that it was a maple bat, and I said, oh, well, that's interesting. There's probably going to be a study on that, the different kinds of woods.
85% of the players use maple bats.
Right.
They said it isn't just the maple bats. Some of the players have a bigger barrel and really narrow handle, and those are the ones that break.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, just simple physics, smaller handle. I mean, but.
Well, you're at the games, you have to really pay attention too, especially when you're sitting in those seats. And at times when I was younger, we would sit on the first base side near the dugout, and every time a righty got up, you got to watch out, because that's where you get the foul ball when he doesn't, when he's behind the pitch, and that's where a lot of the line drives go.
Yeah.
And you got to be, aware. When a lefty's up, you don't have to worry about it, because he's not going to turn and
Yeah,
pull
very
it.
likely no.
But the bat breaking could end up there, so you really have to pay attention.
But that's the unfortunate thing with the bat. I remember I was at a game not that long ago, and it was a real stinging line drive. It wasn't that far from me. I heard the hissing sound as the ball went by me. It hit a woman right in the chest, and I mean it went like that, and she went down right away. She got up after about a couple of minutes, but it was a big scene, and I remember thinking, God almighty, I mean, what if that was a kid? What if that was, somebody doesn't know, it catches them in the temple? It's serious stuff.
I mean, it's one of those, I guess they call it, Nassim Taleb wrote a book called The Black Swan, and the thought is, well, this will never happen to me, and yet obviously we know that it can happen. And for example, the biggest loss in the history of Las Vegas was a guy getting attacked by a tiger in a show. Well, you'd say like, well, of course a guy could get attacked by a tiger. But, I think it cost the Mirage something like $50 million in lost revenue. So the same sort of thing. You don't expect it to happen, yet you know that it could happen at any time.
No, that's it. Life is the lottery, really, when you think about it.
The fans are not going to want the netting, though. They're going to leave it up to the fans, basically, and they're not, unless they cry for it, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be as simple as that.
It could be, and a bat was maybe 1 in a million, but balls hit the stands, hit people all the time, I can't believe more people aren't hurt. Not that I want that to happen.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Some say we're not controversial enough. Well, everything we know doesn't get broadcast on the air, and it never will, for a variety of reasons. But when it comes to Boston sports, we're more than happy to talk about the local teams. Now, the Bruins reintroduced Claude Julien as their head coach, and today he's out saying, we just need to make a few subtle changes to get right back into it. I'm thinking, what?
I mean, that's the move they had to make, was to get rid of him. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're going to play the same brand of hockey. They're going to end up struggling to make the playoffs again with the team they have. They got to get lucky with some of these young players who he doesn't give a chance to play.
Right. The players do not want to play this 2-to-1 back check, hope for a low-scoring breakaway goal or something. They don't want that. You're a young kid. You want to score. You want to go up and down. You want to make money. You're not making money scoring 12 goals for the season.
They got to get rid of everyone who was involved in trading Sagan. That's my feeling. Anyone who was involved in that, they got to get rid of, because it just ruined hockey for the next 12 years. And the fans that have the season tickets should be really upset about that whole situation.
Well, you just have to wonder whether, because he's got a long-term extension, just like John Farrell, just like Ben Cherington, whether ownership says, look, I don't want to pay the guy $3 million a year, whatever, to not coach. We're not going to get rid of him. Now, if the Bruins start off and they go 6-9 in the first month, or it's pretty hard to do that because of the way the games are structured now. They could play 500 over the first 20 games of the season. The fan's going to say, oh yeah, how are things different?
Yeah, what are they going to do with Dougie Hamilton? He wants $6 million. Some team's going to offer him. He's an unrestricted free agent, right?
He's restricted.
He's restricted. They can match it. So if someone offers him $6 million, which he wants, are they going to match that? If they do, they're going to have to get rid of either their goalie, and they was talking about someone else, Chara. I would get rid of the goalie. I would trade the goalie, Tuukka Rask, over Chara, because you get more for Tuukka Rask. And hopefully you can come up with some good young goalies. I mean,
well,
at least you can get some players for them.
It's not as though the Bruins are one player away. The Celtics, conversely, I don't think if they could get a really prominent scoring free agent like LaMarcus Aldridge off Portland, they could be pretty competitive. They were at least as competitive against Cleveland as some of these other teams have been.
Well, if they could have handled Thompson, they would have won a couple of those games. It wasn't James killing them at the end. It was Thompson getting all those offensive rebounds.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens in free agency. Obviously, Crowder's going to test the market. They want Crowder back. Crowder wants to come back, but he's not going to do it at a huge discount from whatever he can get on the market. And a guy like Crowder, you need the player who can play pretty good defense like he can and can score. Now, the Celtics were 22nd, I believe, in taking three-point shots this year. Of the 5 teams that were in the playoffs this year were among the highest number of three-point shots made in the history of the league. So you got to make more threes. And the Celtics, I think, were 27th in actually converting on threes this year. So they took fewer, and their percentage was pretty low. So I think Marcus Smart will shoot better. I think Crowder can improve. He was about 28% shooting threes. And Thomas is a pretty decent shooter, too.
You know why I think there's a chance Crowder, they won't match another team if the team gives them some pretty good money? Because they have all these draft picks. And they got a team now where they're going to be, these draft picks are going to be as good as these players they have in the team now, pretty much. And that, you look at some of these players, and you look at Bradley, you look at Smart, I think they'll be in that area. So you're thinking Crowder, if he's asking for $8 million a year, Angels not going to give him $8 million because he's got a chance to draft someone who's going to be as good as him.
Yeah, it's tough to come in. Justin Anderson, for example, in Virginia, is a left-handed shooting 3. I don't know how to compare Anderson to James to Young.
Young.
I think he might be a little bit better defensively. I'm not wild about what Young's done for them so far. He's a really young guy, but you take guys like 23 years old or 22 years old like Kaminsky, and people talk like he's 50 years old. Well, what good is it to have a 19-year-old who doesn't know how to play instead of a 22-year-old who already knows how to play?
Right, and you look at all these draft picks they have, Ron. Why overpay Crowder? He's not a superstar. He's very good defensively. Offensively, he's okay. They're going to have a number of players who are better than him offensively.
Some of the names that they're talking about when the Celtics are going to be picking include Bobby Portis, who was the SEC Player of the Year from Arkansas, Sam Decker from Wisconsin. I don't know what's going to happen with Kaminsky. For some reason, I think a lot of NBA people just aren't that enthralled with his game. I like Kaminsky. I think he's pretty decent.
But another thing you have to look at too, Ron, you look at Thomas, you look at Bradley, you look at Smart, you look at Turner. Who are they going to get a guard that's better than them? And then you have, who are you going to get a guard where they're picking that's going to be better than them? So forget guards.
Right.
Just forget guards. You're not going to pick a guard. And then you got Crowder, you have Young, you have Jerebko, really small forward type players.
Right.
Who are they going to get that's better than them?
Yeah,
Out of 3, where they're picking.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying Crowder, they may not give him the money.
Right. How many guys come in the 15, 20 range in the NBA draft and do anything right away? I'm not saying that you won't find a Tony Parker someday, but the Celtics aren't going to get that.
But they're in a tough situation, the Celtics, when you look at the players they have now and where they're drafting.
Right. Best of the best. Best 5 players on the Patriots. Who are the best 5 on the Patriots?
That's easy.
Yeah, it should be easy.
You get Collins and Hightower on defense.
Right.
Collins and Hightower, Brady on offense. You get Gronkowski and Edelman. Very easy.
Okay. That seems reasonable.
Who would you pick?
No, I think that's right. And that's pretty much what people are saying. There's a column in ESPN about the best players on every team in the NFL, and as well as risers.
But Ron, who has better 5 players than that than I just named? No team in football have better 5 players than that.
Well, Seattle, they have Russell Wilson, they have Chancellor.
Brady better.
They have Sherman at cornerback.
Oh, that's cornerback.
They have, who's the guy from New Orleans? Jimmy, the tight end. Graham. And Marshawn Lynch. So they're pretty good. That's a pretty stacked group there. Bruins, best 3 players.
Well, you got to go with Tuukka Rask, Bergeron, and Krejci.
Right. I think most people would agree on that. Red Sox. Now, you're probably going to have trouble finding a best 3 players on the Red Sox right now.
Can Rodriguez be one?
I think Rodriguez is one right now. If you said who's untouchable on the Red Sox, you'd never get Rodriguez away from them right now.
We'll agree on this. I know we're going to agree on this. We got Rodriguez, and we'll both pick the next 2 best players on the Red Sox.
Well, the second one's going to be Pedroia.
Yeah, and who's the third one?
Well,
right away.
I think it's Betts.
No, Holt. I thought you would say Holt.
No, I think Betts is better than
Holt. Yeah, I mean, Betts has got better potential.
Yeah, but
who's the better player right now?
I think the overall base running, fielding.
Ron, how can you not say Holt? He plays every position in the field. He hits 290. He's unbelievably defensive player. He's a great base runner.
Right. I know people, and I know
I would love him on the Yankees.
Some people are going to say Hanley Ramirez. Ramirez is a player without a position now. He's a DH.
You talk about a player, Holt's probably making $2 million a year. He should be making $10 million. You talk about what they're giving these players.
He will.
He can play anywhere. He's an unbelievable baseball player, and none of the people are talking about him.
All right, best 3 on the Celtics. Well, Thomas is 1.
Thomas is 1. Wow, that's tough. Even though I'm not crazy about him.
Well, you like Olenek.
Yeah. I like Olenek's potential if he works on what I would work with him on, and you probably like Bradley.
Well, I don't know. To
Turner
me,
or Bradley?
I think Bradley, Turner, Smart are all kind of about the same level.
Smart needs another 2 years.
I think Smart will learn how to shoot. I think the issue I have with Smart is that he's really not a strong pick and roll player right now.
Maybe a head case too.
Yeah, the NBA, well, he could be. He plays kind of angry. But it's really important in the NBA to be able to run the pick and roll. I mean, it's just so important to be able to convert off of that.
But you know, a guy like Smart, you know, in all the years I've been watching basketball, in 2 years, next year he'll be better, but his third year is when he's really going to come into his own.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit about coaching, and there's always an incredible amount to talk about in coaching. And what I thought about was risk management. And when you talk about risk management, you're talking about the whole organization. So if you make one bad draft choice, for example, you can sink your organization for years. For the Celtics, obviously, the worst draft choice ever was Len Bias, because they lost Bias, who would have been coming in at the tail end of the Bird, McHale, Parrish era. Bias would have been probably 2 championships more with that group because he could have cut down minutes, and Bias could do everything. Now, that's a woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Almost a bigger Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, not in Michael's class, but right behind them.
A lot like Worthy, same idea. You know,
But he could shoot.
right.
Great outside shooter.
And he could block shots.
Took it to the hoop
But
strong.
anyway, that's now. If you look at well, obviously the Patriots are involved in this Deflategate stuff. But what happened this week with the Denver Broncos owner's son, who apparently took his girlfriend's phone when she was calling 911 about a domestic violence case and told her nothing happened, and he threw the phone down, and then the police came. It was one of those, do you know who I am? Yeah, you're domestic violence abuser. That's all who you are.
But to get off track just for a second, you hear what Shaq said about deflating footballs?
No.
He goes, I used to deflate the basketballs.
Really?
And they go, how'd you do it? He said, I had a needle in my pants.
No.
Yeah, he said, I deflated. They go, why would you deflate? He goes, number one, I couldn't dribble the friggin' ball, so I deflate the ball. Number two, he goes, I couldn't pound the ball like Michael Jordan, so I would deflate the ball down so I could pound the ball like Michael Jordan. He goes, and they go, how'd you do it? And he goes, one of the guys used to have it. I bring it in with me, and I give it to one of the guys. And all I do is just put it in the ball. And they go to him, do you think it was cheating? He goes, no. He goes, that's why I like the ball.
That's the first I heard of that.
Yeah, yesterday it came on.
That's fantastic.
But getting back to coaching, I saw too bad. I think it's all coaching in the pro baseball. Pedroia cost him the game yesterday. You know, he didn't take a good secondary lead. He didn't get to third base on a bunt by Castillo. They blamed Castillo, but it was Pedroia getting a bad jump. And Teixeira, not knowing where the fielders were on a line drive, didn't score, almost costing the Yankees the game. The Yankees ended up winning, scoring 3 runs. But coaching's huge. You know, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Ron. You got to be lucky sending the kid up to high school. You got to be lucky to have him be coached by a real good coach, because you're seeing all over that the coaching at times isn't that good, and you're seeing real good talent going up there and not being coached well. And you know, you look at that. It's not. I'm not looking at Melrose. I'm looking at, we've watched sports throughout the years, and we see these teams, and a lot of the teams aren't well coached. Kids are working on their game from when they're youths, going up to high school, and they're not being coached well. And you're seeing that at times, whether it's a teacher who shouldn't be coaching, or they pick someone who's not a teacher that shouldn't be coaching. And you really have to be lucky. And I was thinking about that the other day. I said, Melrose High's real lucky with Morris. That coaching staff's tremendous, that football coaching staff. So you have a kid going up there playing football, and that's what I look at. And I don't know how you look at that situation.
I was talking to people from another Middlesex League community today. They have hired a new coach. The coach has brought in a lot of other young, similar age coach in their 30s who haven't been coached at a varsity level. And most of the older coaches are being let go. Now, does that mean they're going to be unsuccessful? Not at all. So young coaches can sometimes relate very well to players. On the other hand, if we look at the average age of the coaches in the Final Four this year for the NCAA, it was 62 and a half years. So you might say there's a lot of great young coaches like the Celtics have Stevens, there's Shaka Smart who's down in Texas now. But who's there? Krzyzewski, Calipari, Patino's really along, Izzo at Michigan State. Guys that have been around for a long time. Now, different deal in college. You can pick your players, you can pick your system. In high school, you have to coach with the players you have. But every coach wants to have better material, that wants to have players with higher basketball IQ, that have more experience. Whether you're a fifth grade coach or a high school coach or even a college coach, everybody wants to have the same thing. But your job is to get the most out of the players you have, player development, and use those players in an intelligent way to mesh with their abilities.
Yeah, I think it's just so important. You know, you just hope that when the kids go up there, they have a real good coach to play for, and you see that in some areas, and then you don't see it in other areas.
Well, at the end of the day, results matter. The Melrose football team went to the Super Bowl last year. They had a terrific senior class, good supporting class of underclassmen, excellent coaching staff, extremely well-constructed program all the way down to middle school. So it's easy to understand why they've been successful. Some of the other programs, more success, less success, you know, what you're going to see, because you're going to have different athletes and different coaches, and it doesn't always work out. I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.